So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Emma Pearmaine, who's Managing Director at Ridley and Hall Solicitors. So, Emma, firstly, thank you for spending some time with us. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Ridley and Hall, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Emma Pearmaine. I'm a solicitor and managing director at Ridley and Hall Solicitors, and we are a law firm in Western South Yorkshire. We're based in Huddersfield, Pontefract, Barnsley, and Leeds. And I'm really, really proud of our local law firm. We've grown phenomenally over the last 8 years, and we balance providing legal aid services to the local community and your standard high street services that most of us need at some point in their lives when we're buying and selling houses, making wills when a member of the family dies, when we have a family issue, or we've got some sort of litigation issue. So it's very much community-based legal services at Ridley and Hall.
Brilliant, wonderful. And a couple of things there. What would you say makes a great client? Obviously, you provide a whole range of services, but what would make a great client for you specifically, if you could identify one?
A great client, actually, is somebody who has a genuine legal issue that we can help with. That's what a great client looks like.
Perfect.
Um, yeah, it's no more complicated than that, really.
And you mentioned before we started that you've got quite a very strong connection with the local business community, especially different sort of tech based sectors.
Yeah, yes, have. I think it's really important to get involved with the local business community when you're managing any business of your own. Um, I'm involved with Leeds Law Society. I'm a past president and a director, and I'm also on the board of the Legal Tech in Leeds group. And that's important because it's about contributing to the wider profession, not just my own business. And it
Yes.
keeps me connected across the sector. So that could be regulatory, recruitment, it could be innovation, tech, AI. And it's a really valuable insight when you're making your own strategic decisions for your own business. And it's collaboration as well, because I
Yeah.
think, in the North, we have a strong professional network.
Yes.
And, so organizations like the Legal Tech Group or like Leeds Law Society, they create a space where we can share ideas, we can support each other, and we can raise standards collectively. I think that's what's important to me. And it lets me bring something back into Ridley and Hall. And that's usually, I don't know, insights,
Yeah.
opportunity, connections. And then I also feel like, you're paying back, you're contributing
Yeah.
to the strength and the profile of the legal sector in the region, which is it's important to me.
Brilliant. Love it. So, I mean, maybe if we start by looking backwards a little bit, and you could tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Well, I'm a steelworker's daughter from Scunthorpe. And so, I grew up in the north and I was really fortunate to go off to university and I went to study law. I'd like to say it's a more credible reason than LA law, but growing up in the 1980s, yeah,
Brilliant.
there weren't, but I was growing up in the 1980s in a area that was suffering
Yeah.
economically, an area very similar to the geographical areas where I work now, which is, I think, why I understand the
Yes.
areas where we work.
Yes.
Not dissimilar to Pontefract, Barnsley, Huddersfield,
Yeah.
and areas of Leeds, where particularly during the 1980s, things were very
Yeah.
difficult for working class families. And LA Law was the big one for me because until then, the women on all of these
Yeah.
programs, they were the assistants.
Yes.
And what was really interesting about that as a legal drama at the time, although I didn't analyze it like that at the time, is that suddenly the scale and the visibility of women in that program, it changed. It completely changed. And that was what inspired me. Now, of course, in those programs, they were in LA and these women, look fabulous and were in the sunshine and in the convertibles. And it's not quite the same in Huddersfield, Pontefract and Barnsley and
Oh,
Leeds. But um, I think it does. that's what drove me,
Brilliant.
thinking that I want a different, I
Yes.
want a different life. And my parents were very, very supportive always. And I saw that, that was an opportunity in the legal profession. So that's why I went into it initially. And since then, as I'm in the legal profession, I am very conscious that how do I do visibility matters.
Yeah.
If you're in a leadership position as a
Yes.
managing director of a regional law firm, it's not just about the role itself, it's about demonstrating that there are different roles into routes into leadership and law, and that you don't just have to follow a traditional path. You don't have to be based in London to get there. You can come from any background and you can get there if you can get the help and support that you need.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Great. It's really, you said, you was mentioning LA Law, and in hindsight, just looking back, yeah, it was the first show. In fact, just in my mind, I can probably remember the female characters above the male characters, which is probably the first
Yeah.
time, as you rightly say, that, that would have been the case in any sort of TV.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because otherwise the high profile women were the wives or assistants or partners or
Yeah.
they didn't have any career roles and leadership roles.
And so, looking back over, um, your career and the business and Ridley and Hall, what would you say some of the biggest challenges and issues you've had to overcome over time?
Well, I mean, over the last 10 years, there've been a lot of challenges. There've been huge challenges with access to justice, legal aid and legal aid funding.
Yes.
And legal aid as a way of supporting the community um, it is essential, and there hasn't been any increase in funding in excess of 14 years, which, if you think about the cost of running a business, and salary and payroll costs have changed significantly in that time, and our ability to generate income in that sector has not really changed massively.
Yeah.
So that's been a real challenge, and it's important to us
Yes.
because it would have been really easy to give that up and say, it's just not profitable. We're not going to do it anymore. And, we have, as a group of business owners in Ridley and Hall, been really clear that that's not for us. We want to continue to do that as long as we
Brilliant.
can.
Brilliant.
And the other challenge is, well, I mean, COVID changed everything for everybody, didn't it, when you're running a business? And that completely changed the way, we approached where our clients are based, how we serve our clients, how we support our employees. All for the better, I
Yeah.
think, but it's been a big change. Tech
Yeah.
and the use of tech, particularly over the last 10 years, and where we invest has
Yeah.
changed significantly.
Yeah.
Proportionately, what we invest in tech now is probably 10, maybe 20, 10 times or more than what we invested in it even 5 years ago per
Yes.
annum. And I mean, that's a good thing, but
Yeah.
it's a big change. It's
Yeah.
something we're getting our heads around at the moment. So that's changed. And also, the way that our clients shop for legal services has changed significantly over the last 10 years. Because more and more the next generation of client, they shop online.
Yeah.
They're not just Google searching now.
Yeah.
They find us through their AI searches.
Yes.
They converse with ChatGPT and find us instead of finding us through a Google search. And 15 years ago, we were still advertising in the local paper for our local client. And that just, that's just not how it works now, is it? So all of that, I mean, I find it really fascinating,
Yes.
business of law, and what the next generation client is going to look like going forwards, and how we support our next generation lawyer in the
Yes.
workplace, I think is going to be really interesting. So yeah, they're the challenges. I mean, they don't stop, do they? They just evolve.
No, absolutely not. I was told years ago, by the then CEO of my organisation, and he said, Chris, the job of a business owner is to solve problems.
Yeah,
And basically said, if you don't like problems, probably business
yeah,
ownership
yeah.
isn't the right thing for you. But adding to that, Emma, that I've come to believe over time is, if we're not experiencing problems, we're probably not growing at a rate that we could grow at. if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
we call them growing pains for a reason. So it helped me, and I've worked with sort of a lot of clients to embrace problems as a positive indication of growth, if that makes sense. And so all
Yeah,
of a sudden it's great, we've got
completely.
some problems, and if we haven't got any, let's do some stuff and find some more problems to solve, because that's probably the change that we need to do to make things better.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting, particularly as when you think about like the northern economy and professional services firms like mine, we are a key part of the northern economy.
Yes,
And I think I was talking to you earlier about, Leeds being the biggest regional legal sector. So we're the
yes.
biggest legal sector outside of London, which, do people know that? Would you know that?
I
Um, and Leeds is also now really competitive in the legal tech sector. And Leeds was always known for its med tech or its fintech. It's now known for its legal tech.
yes,
And then professional services like Ridley and Hall, we are a key part of our local economy
yep,
and of the northern economy, but not just in a commercial sense, because equally important. I remember having a conversation with Leeds City Council about this just before the pandemic, actually, when I was president of Leeds Law Society, and they were talking about how it might be the big legal firms that are contributing to the local economy in terms of cash, but actually it's the high street legal sector, firms like Ridley and Hall, that are embedded in the community,
yep,
supporting individuals, families, businesses,
yep,
through the most important moments in their lives. And that's a different kind of economic impact. And it's absolutely crucial for a thriving local social structure.
yes,
So we're not just generating revenue, we're contributing, we was talking to Leeds City Council and it was about stability, supporting local employment, helping local businesses, the SME sector who they can't afford to use the big national and global law firms that have a local presence within Leeds, for example. They need to use the high street sector
yes,
like us. So
yep,
it all goes full circle, and it's really important. And I find that really interesting, how
yes.
through that collaboration.
It strikes me just talking to you now that the two words purpose and contribution sound, are very important to you.
Yeah, they are really important. I don't know, probably the way I grew up.
It's great,
Um,
which is great, and what I believe to be true. They're also, and just so we're clear, they're a success strategy too. It's like it's not we could be success. They come at the risk of success. They don't. They're actually the fundamental part, because people, when
yeah.
they know, understand our purpose and the contribution we give, will be more and more attracted to us. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we make decisions. For example, as a law firm, we would be significantly more profitable, for
Yes,
example, if we weren't delivering legal aid services. So what does success look like? And it can be a different measure, can't it, for
100%,
people and different businesses?
100%.
So Ridley and Hall's measure of success is possibly slightly different to another law firm where they're delivering different types of legal services. But for us, success is about sustainability for the services that we deliver locally, for our clients, for our employees. It's about, having the ability to continue to grow and develop, looking at what the next big thing is. And and it sounds trite actually, but enjoying yourself a bit along the way. Because, you spend more time in the workplace with your colleagues and with your clients than you do at home with the family that you love.
Yep,
And so, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, what's the point?
couldn't agree more.
Um, that is really important to me, to the other four fantastic people that, are shareholders in Ridley and Hall with me, and the way we run our business. And hopefully, hopefully we do the right thing most of the time. We often have conversations about what's the right thing.
Yep,
Um, that as well sounds very sort of basic and a naive thing to say out loud, but it
not at
helps you
all.
make the right decisions, I think. What's the right thing?
It doesn't sound like that at all. In fact, for me, you say it's all about purpose.
yeah,
if we're not clear what our purpose is, then we can be, operating. We can start to diverge from what is really important to us. And as you rightly say, success is whatever we choose. It is the
yeah,
definition. So whatever we choose it to be. But the mark you've got a very successful business
yeah,
already, and I would suggest it's because of the purpose. As you said, the unprofitable part of maintaining legal services, that I would suggest puts you as a business someone that cares, and that will attract a lot of people because you care.
it
Whereas,
does.
yeah,
Yeah, it does.
and
We
that's
get loads of great lawyers coming to us, We've got lots of really
brilliant.
fantastic vocational lawyers.
Yep.
Yeah,
I interviewed, well, I've interviewed twice actually, a local restaurateur. He owns a chain. I could name him, but I won't today. But he said to me, I remember him saying to me, and it's always stuck in my mind. He said, Chris, the people that come to our restaurants have worked really hard for the money they earn, so they deserve to get the best service, the
yeah,
best quality, and he actually said, irrespective of profitability. Now,
yeah,
what I mean by purpose being a success strategy is he's a very successful guy because he
yeah,
focuses on the quality of the service, not
yeah,
because he counts every, and
yeah,
when purpose is at the core of what we do, it is a success strategy, whatever the
yeah,
purpose is.
yeah.
So wonderful. So alongside the challenges and talk about purpose, what tips or what learnings have you had about growing a successful business you could share with us, Emma?
Do I feel like I'm learning something new every day. Every day's a learning day, isn't it?
That's a good start. Absolutely.
No, it really
Keep
is.
keep on learning.
Yeah, I do keep on learning. Certainly, for us at Ridley and Hall, I very much feel that it's all about having the right people. It's about having
Right.
the right people doing the right roles with the right support. And if we get that right, the rest just sort of follows
Yep.
because they deliver a great service then to the client, and the client's thrilled with what we've done, and they tell their friends, and then we get more work. And it evolves that way. And that's you asked me earlier, didn't you? What's your best client? That's the best client, actually.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I mean, we do what all the other law firms do. We seemingly spend a huge amount of money on our website and search engine optimization, and what we're going to do with AI searches and all of that sort of thing. And we spend a lot of money doing a lot of things, but ultimately, that's the best client, and that's the real core of the success. We're just about to start a new piece of work on employee engagement this year. We last did a project in 2022 as we were coming out of the pandemic, and we recognised that how we worked just had changed beyond
Yes.
recognition. Before the pandemic, we were a firm with one site. We just opened our Leeds office
Brilliant.
before the pandemic, but Ridley and Hall has been in Huddersfield for 100 years. Next year, we celebrate our centenary. So
Wow.
I'm the custodian
Yep.
of Ridley and Hall.
Yes.
That actually is quite a big responsibility.
Yes.
I very much see it that way. I am the custodian of Ridley and Hall. It's been there for nearly 100 years in Huddersfield. And we opened the Leeds office just before the pandemic. And then through, and we secured business then in Pontefract. Then in late 2021, we opened in Barnsley. And until then, before the pandemic, everybody that we employed worked in the office in
Yeah.
Huddersfield.
Right.
And then suddenly, we had a situation where we had people split across four sites. We had people working hybrid, which actually has been great,
Yeah.
great for our employees because not on purpose, we predominantly employ women, absolutely not on purpose. But I think it's because of some of the work streams that we do that women are possibly more attracted to those types of work streams, family
Yep.
law, care law,
Yep.
adoption, um, uh, probate, and where clients are in personal emotional distress. Um, And certainly for our employees, it's sort of opened up their ability to work and manage a family. And, that's been phenomenal for them. So we're like, well, our employees, they're not with us. We're not all together anymore. What do we do about this? And employee engagement became a big thing for us, a real big challenge. And we ended up with more than 100 actions coming out of that project. And we're just about to start that again as we move into our centenary year, because I think we're moving again now. After the pandemic, it was all about how we work. And now it's about actually how we support the next generation coming through and what do they
Yes.
want and need, which are quite different things to certainly what my age group, my generation, I'm in my 50s, what we needed. And I don't knock it at all. It's how we evolve, isn't it, as a society? And my grown-up children are that age. My oldest son, he's 26, he's a lawyer. He works in construction law,
Got you.
not with Ridley and Hall, because he didn't want to work with his mum, and I get that.
Yes.
I absolutely, no, he really just didn't want to work with his mother, and he didn't want to do anything like the sort of law that I've done because
Yeah.
I have always been a family lawyer. But he has a different approach to life to me. Of course he does.
Yes.
Of course he does, because he's a different generation. So how do we adapt to that? So, you asked that question before about what the biggest challenge. That's another massive challenge, and I'm excited about that. This whole employee engagement piece, because again, if you get it right for the people that you work with, for your colleagues, you inadvertently get it right for your clients.
Without doubt. I mean, for me, the job of a business owner is to recruit, retain, reward, and lead a great team.
Yeah,
And the team look
yeah,
after the clients. It's like we call
yeah,
it sort of cycle of businesses when we meet sort of for younger and smaller businesses than yours. Typically, the owner is still dealing
yeah,
with the team, dealing with the clients, running the business. And for us,
yeah,
it's like we need to break that cycle because it's all about the owners. And the
yeah,
quicker the owners become the leaders of the teams that deliver. But it's interesting that you highlight that because it's something I'm talking to a lot of people about at the moment. Is that in business, it's totally sensible to have a marketing budget and a client retention budget. Let's go and find great clients. Let's keep them. Let's make sure. And that's sort of been. But for me, an equivalent budget should be there for recruiting and attracting great people and
yeah,
keeping them because
yeah,
it's so key. Great businesses are founded on great
yeah,
people. And
yeah,
I guess there isn't the other thing that I, seen over quite a long period of time is there isn't the loyalty, and that's fine. There doesn't need to be the
yeah,
loyalty that there might have been a long time ago. And people, actively want to get new experiences. And if we don't make our business continually exciting and developing, then naturally people will probably go and go elsewhere. So it's a duty we have. But again, for me, it comes back to purpose. I think you mentioned that you felt
mm,
your purpose was attracting some amazing people. Absolutely, and I'm sure it's attracting amazing clients too. Everything revolves around purpose for me.
yeah. I mean, retaining talent it is critical, isn't it, if we want to
Yeah,
continue to grow and thrive? And we have different challenges actually between our Leeds office and then our Huddersfield, Pontefract, and Barnsley offices. And the work I do with Leeds Law Societies is about retaining talent. Retaining
yes,
talent in the north is critical if we want the region to
yeah,
grow and thrive. And there's
yes,
always been this perception that
yes,
you have to go to London to build a successful career in law or professional services, and that is just not the case. It's absolutely not the case in
yeah,
Leeds. The Leeds legal profession offers a really high quality of work, career progression, really strong, balanced working environment. Um, so that's great for the big firms. That's what we're helping and supporting them with from a Leeds Law Society perspective.
yeah,
For my firm, of course, I'm trying to retain talent in the small firm, not just for them to be hoovered up by the big firms in Leeds. And then, of course, when we look at towns like Huddersfield, Pontefract, and Barnsley, we're very close to what are thriving cities of, Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester. And so that's about retaining that talent in the town for the local people. Um, but so employee engagement is everything because it
yes,
contributes to the town's local economy. That's really important for towns like Huddersfield, Barnsley, and Pontefract. and professional network. And we're lucky there's some good law firms and they're not competitors. You need other good local professional services firms to help your firm
Yep,
be successful, to
definitely.
keep your clientele in the town and stop them going to the cities. So
Yes.
it's quite challenging. There's a different way of looking at it depending on our geographical location as well as to how we retain talent and what we need to do. Yeah.
You referred to your business a couple of times about being, I think you've used the word small, and I appreciate that in terms of the big national players. But just for anyone that's watching, just how many people do you have in your business at the moment?
Well, actually, we employ 130, just under 130 people. Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
that's head count. That's not full-time equivalent. We have a lot of people who work all sorts of flexible hours for us. But yeah,
brilliant.
head count just under 130, and that's grown from 50. We had 55 pre-pandemic, and so that's grown to
Wow,
130. Yeah, which is great. And we've grown from in 2017, it was 1.5 million turnover. This year will be 5.5 million turnover. By the end of next year, our centenary year, we should be at 7 million turnover. So we're really
amazing.
proud of that. Really proud.
Absolutely, and I thank you for. I was keen to highlight that. There are a lot of people watching. That is, I appreciate we met in the scale of the legal profession. We might be on the smaller end, but in terms of a business, that's a very chunky
Yeah,
business, especially
yeah,
in Yorkshire and Leeds. Sorry, in Yorkshire in general.
yeah,
So and comes with it, and one of the reasons for asking it's when you have a size of business in terms of number of people of that, there is a whole another layer of engagement that's required because
yeah,
I found we got to in my first business we got to just over 100 people, so it's quite and I remember the journey of the first sort of 20. You knew them, you knew their wives, their families, their pets, their children,
yeah,
and then you got to sort of 50 and you knew them and perhaps their partner, and then by the time you get to sort of 80, 90, it was quite difficult to keep up with
yeah,
everyone in an organization. And ultimately, I think it's almost impossible too. But I think the more we do our best to continue to connect as a leader into individuals, the more the business is going to be successful and people are going to be retained. If that
yeah.
makes sense.
I think so. It is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah,
I often get to Friday and I think, right, well, it depends how you measure your productivity, doesn't it? Certainly in my role, no, it's not as easy to measure my own personal productivity now as it used to be when I was actually lawyering. Because when I was actually lawyering, I knew how many clients I had and how many hours I'd spent, supporting those clients and, how many court hearings I'd done and all of that sort of thing. And it's all very measurable. And now a lot of what I do personally is it's not particularly measurable. Of course, the success of the business is measurable,
100%.
but I think I spend most of my time with our people now. That's where my time is spent.
If it helps at all, and I've been lucky enough to work with quite a few, quite a lot of professional service businesses, but especially legal businesses. And I think the biggest challenge is being stuck in the business. It is the fact that normally the owners, the senior partners are the highest earners, and therefore, if push comes to shove, the first view is how can I earn some more money by doing some work. But our
Yeah,
job as owners and leaders of a business of your size, it's all about leadership, direction. It should be about
yeah,
it should rarely be about in it,
yeah,
i.e. doing the work.
yeah,
But so
yeah,
if it helps, I think where you are and what you're doing and the mindset you've got is bang on for the organisation you've got. Any other business, and it's really interesting because it's most businesses they pass that point a lot earlier. So a plumbing business, it becomes much more valuable for a plumbing owner business to focus on growing the business than doing the plumbing
yeah.
work. That's probably not a good answer actually because they're highly paid now, aren't they? But if you
They
get
are, yeah,
the idea, but in the legal profession, you obviously
yeah,
you can earn a lot as an hourly rate, and the quicker we stop working out the hourly rate, the better, because then we're not
yeah,
tempted to go back and do the work because that is your job now. It's growing, it's strategy, it's spending time with people. There's a guy who you may or may not know, a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a very well known. He's got a massive marketing company in the US. He's quite a media icon in terms of social media. and we had him speaking at our national conference this last year, and he said that that was the only real job of a founder should be to spend as much time with the team as possible. Um,
Yeah, actually, it was one of our apprentices. I have a monthly catch up group with our solicitor apprentices and trainee solicitors and um, apprentice paralegals, and we just have a check on each other to see how everybody's getting on, and we'll talk about a topic or whatever. And one of them recently said to me, you know, what what kind of leader do you try to be? And I said. Um, for me, actually, I don't think leadership is about having all the answers. I often don't have an answer. You know, I get
really
asked all
isn't.
sorts of things and think, oh, crikey, I don't know. It's about listening, you know, and
Yes,
being open to different perspectives and then trying to make informed decisions and being honest, you know, having difficult conversations with
absolutely.
people when something needs to change or, you know, and to enable others. I think our employees are really my clients now. My job is to give them the tools, you know,
Yes,
the confidence and the opportunities, and to make sure the business itself is sustainable.
yes. I,
And then after that it follows.
I
Um,
completely
but I
agree.
often don't know the answers.
I, I personally, and we shouldn't. It like if it helps you, if you put the reverse of that, if you had all the answers, if you believed you had all the answers, you won't be leading that business very well because
Yeah.
there's no need to learn anymore. And when learning
Mm.
stops, growth stops. So it's not knowing. I think what as leaders we need to be is confident the answer exists and finding the answer ultimately, but not having the answers if they're all there. We may need to encourage people to believe that we might have the answers because that's one of the reasons they're following us as leaders. But I think being authentic and saying, look, I don't know, quite often this is where we're headed. I don't know yet exactly how we're going to get there, but we're getting there, and
Yeah.
that's leadership for me. It's not, and this is
Yeah.
ABC of doing it. And the truth about it is, if you already know how to get there, we're probably that's limiting the ability of the company to grow to its full extent. It's almost like it's the dream past where we can see.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it
It's
does.
having that
It
vision
does.
past where we can see. If you see it, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's leading a business past what you can see that's the difficult one. Um and Emma, I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who has had the biggest impact on you?
Oh, well, I suppose there've been all sorts of people through my career. Early on in my career, there was a one partner of the firm the firm I would say I grew up in, you know, that I qualified in and learned learned the craft. She was absolutely fantastic, and she was a massive influence. And you know, when I got the opportunity to develop my career, which actually led me to leaving that business, leaving that firm, she was the one who was saying, "You've got to do it. You know, you've got
Brilliant.
absolutely," and pushing me on. And as a younger woman, I don't think I would have had the confidence to do it if there wasn't somebody
Yes.
behind me shoving me along a bit. You find you don't. You, I think certainly the younger people in my business, you suffer from confidence at that age. It is
Yeah.
actually quite a long while, isn't it, till you get I was definitely well into my 30s later that before I really properly started to get my
Yep.
confidence
Yep.
in the profession. I mean, I was doing all the right things up until then. But she really pushed me along, which was amazing. I had a group of friends who all worked in different professional services, and we would get together. So I suppose that was like an informal mentoring group,
Yes.
really. And they pushed me along.
Brilliant.
Um, Within the business, you know, we've used a few organisations and firms to support us. We've been working with a York-based firm, Pro Development, recently, who have been doing those same sort of things for my colleagues in the business.
Yep.
And it is really, but it does make a difference.
Yes.
Um, there aren't many of us who don't question ourselves. What is it they call it now? Oh, they call it imposter syndrome now, don't they?
They do.
We all have it. We all get imposter
100%.
syndrome, don't we? And sometimes you need people around you to just say, right, no, you are right. Go on, crack on.
Absolutely. And it
Yeah,
probably mentioned by at least half the people I interview, imposter syndrome,
yeah.
at whatever position they're. If it helps, is a good. We're going to come on to quotes in a second. There's a great quote by a guy called Stephen Bartlett, who does the Diary of a CEO podcast. He's one of the dragons on Dragon's Den.
Okay.
He's the younger guy, and he said he loves imposter syndrome. He loves it because it means he's in the right room and he's going to learn something.
Well, there you go.
And I
Yeah,
think that's a really great way of looking at it, isn't it? It's
yeah,
like if you're in a room where you're totally
yeah,
confident, you're probably going to be the person that teaches other people, which is fine and useful, but we also need to continue to grow ourselves.
yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
And so, yeah, so whether it's from many of the people you mentioned or not, as I said, do you have any favorite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using on a regular basis about success, life, business? It's okay to say no.
I mean, the only thing I've said this to you before, actually, the thing that we often say to ourselves is, what's the right thing?
Yeah,
And we say that all the time, actually, as a group of business owners in a meeting or whatever, what's the right decision? Um, and here, and I think we mean that beyond, we mean that in terms of, holistically, financially, from a social responsibility perspective.
yeah,
It's about doing the right thing.
yes. Yeah, no,
So I don't have a quote, but that is what we're always
that's
saying to each other.
no, it's a great matter. I mean, it sounds like it almost a mantra, and it's a great mantra to have. What is the right thing? Um,
Yeah.
it's not always easy to find, of course, but then that's what you're searching for. So whatever you,
It's usually a
however,
compromise, actually. It's usually a
yeah,
compromise between all the people in the room is the right thing. Because if you ask the
yes,
finance director what the right thing to do is, you're going to get a different answer to if you ask whoever's in charge of compliance to if you ask
correct,
whoever's in charge of, social
correct.
responsibility. And actually that compromise, that's usually the right thing, isn't it?
That's the right thing. Absolutely. I often say, if a let's say a board or a leadership team don't have friction, then we probably haven't got the right
Yeah,
mix of people. And friction is energy, so friction is positive. Obviously,
yeah,
that if it goes too negative, it could be uncomfortable, overly uncomfortable. But there should be friction. There should be
yeah,
disagreement. If we all
yeah,
thought the same, it's truth. Get the matter again is if four people all think the same all the time, then three of them are redundant in many ways.
yeah,
There's no need for them to be there because we're all thinking the same. So we need that difference of
yeah.
opinion just to move the dial a little bit. Yeah, okay. We definitely think, yeah, but let's just do this. So I think that's great. And I'm also keen to know any favorite books or podcasts that you can recommend. Again, whether it's business or life or
I
even
don't
just
really
keep
have a
reading.
favorite. I get stuck on stuff, like when I'm in the car, I like listening to, I go through like people say, what do they call it? Oh, binge watching, that's what they call it. But you
Yes.
binge watch on TV now, don't you?
Yep.
And I think I binge watch stuff on like podcasts. At the moment, I'm going through the back catalogue of Desert Island Discs, bizarrely, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
Finding out all sorts of things about all sorts of people, which just is thought-provoking,
Yeah.
um, and what I'm enjoying about that at the moment is it's not just famous people. I was
Yep.
listening to somebody that they were interviewing who she leads disaster recovery, and what she was talking about actually then led to a conversation in the workplace.
Brilliant.
Um, and so, no, I don't have anything specific. I bounce from one thing to another,
Yeah.
and I sort of binge listen, if that's the
Well,
thing.
we'll stick with Desert Island
Um,
Discs. I think that's great. I honestly, that's great because, as you say, it's different people talk about different life experiences, and they
yeah,
they they recommend something, but they give you the reason why, don't they? And it's the reasons why that
yeah,
could be quite
yeah.
fascinating.
That's right. And it's I think it's because this is probably why family law suited me, because I am very, very interested in other people.
Yes,
And so if I have a favorite thing, it's anything that gives me an insight into other people when I'm
brilliant.
reading a book or if I'm listening to a podcast or whatever. Because as a family lawyer, that is what I miss actually about lawyering now, because I'm not really lawyering now,
Yep,
myself personally, is you absolutely get the ins and outs of
yes,
somebody's life. It's really up close and personal.
Yeah,
And, it's a privilege being able to help somebody. It's also very, very interesting. It's a really interesting insight in people
yeah,
and who, do the most amazing things, sometimes the most shocking things. And that's why that's why I listen to a lot of podcasts, I think. But they're
brilliant.
never really anything highbrow, actually.
That's, yeah, I don't, yeah, I mean, I think the lessons are everywhere around us, aren't they? So it's, the lessons are in walking down the street or going to have a meal. There's lessons around us all the time of how we treat people, how other people are treated, and so learning comes from many different ways, and it's great. No, we're still, I like the idea of Desert Island Disc because you say different people. In fact, Desert Island Disc was the original podcast. If you think about it, it was the
Well, I
original
suppose it was. Yeah,
because it's definitely that format of asking people questions and
yeah, it is.
understanding more about them. I'd suggest it definitely is. So, if with your permission, we'll stick with that one.
Yeah, okay.
And on the learning front, then, I mean, last thing, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
Um, what have I learned about myself? I need to be challenged. I do. I need to be interested in challenged in something, and actually, I think that's why I eventually, I fell into a leadership position because I think a lot of people do, don't they? You, I was. I'd like to think I was a good lawyer. Yeah. Um, but more and more, I was being asked to undertake leadership responsibilities, and that sort of grows into something else. And then I realised I enjoyed it, really enjoyed it. And I think what I enjoy most about it is the unknown. Like you get up on a Monday morning, and I have an idea of how the week's going to pan out, and then I get to Friday night, and it's not panned out like that at all. And loads of stuff has been thrown up that I didn't expect. And what I learned about myself is that is what I thrive on, actually. Um,
Interesting.
if I didn't do this, I probably would have suited like had I known that it was a thing as a young person, like operations or something, maybe disaster recovery, like that person I was
Yes.
fascinated about on the pod. All of because what I've realised is I've realised about myself. What I need is that I need that opportunity to work things out
Yeah.
and keep my brain busy and not have repetition and routine. That's what I've learned about myself.
That's it.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I thought it was routine that I needed because that, as a younger person, I thought that gave me stability, and lawyering it did give me that stability. But
Yes.
actually, as I've got older now, I've realised that I don't know if you should use the word excitement, but it is exciting. The excitement of the unknown is what I need. Um, within the stable framework of a stable business. You've got, what do they call it? Guardrails. That's what
No,
they,
it's all
with
good.
AI, they talk about guardrails, don't they? So I've got my guardrails.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got my guardrails, but within that, I like dealing with the unexpected.
which is really interesting. And I do quite a lot of behavioural profiling. Is what we do with leadership teams, with teams in general. And um, one thing I have seen, and I've done this. I've worked with quite a few legal businesses. Is the typical behavioural profile of a lawyer is someone that is very analytical, very structured, quite risk
Yeah,
averse.
yeah, yeah,
In fact, I remember doing an event with the
yeah,
leadership team of one, or the team of one. There was 13 lawyers that we did, and 12 of them were that profile, and one wasn't, which
yeah,
was quite interesting. That he ended up leaving quite when he realised it. No wonder nobody thinks like me. But what I was going to say is that therefore might be what stood you out as being the person that became the leader because
maybe.
leaders do need to be comfortable with change. They need to be comfortable, and even if we're embracing and look for the unknown, that's not really in my the experience. But I'm not saying it's true of everybody. The typical profile of a typical lawyer.
Yeah.
So
We joke about it in our meetings because whenever we propose to do something, that that I present to my colleagues, the first thing that they will all do is present to me a dozen reasons why that just won't work and can't happen. That's just the natural, because
Yeah,
actually we're trained as lawyers. We are trained to
absolutely.
challenge,
Yeah,
aren't we?
absolutely.
When presented with anything. And
Absolutely.
once that becomes part of your psyche, so you were saying again about what's a challenge earlier, weren't you? You were asking me what the
Yep.
biggest challenge is. Actually, change management is massive in the legal sector.
Yes,
And you've obviously experienced that too when you've worked in the legal sector.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's, and it is a challenge. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it is a challenge, especially if there's a desire to change, and yet if there's a logical desire to change, but a subconscious desire not to change, that's when there's a real
yeah,
problem. We need to change. I remember going through I can't remember the technical term, but they called it Tesco law, whenever it was to go
yeah,
back
yeah,
sort of 15 years ago, and
yeah,
and that was a massive change that
yeah,
everyone was fearful of. The whole legal system was going to be totally
yeah,
disrupted, and yet, I remember working at that point with a couple of legal firms, and despite the fact it felt like something was happening. Luckily, I guess it didn't have the impact it did because even the ones I was working with were really struggling to make any major changes that might
mm,
allow some form of protection to that, if that makes sense. But it never
yeah.
really had the impact that I think everyone was fearing at the time. What was it called? I'd say it was called. I only remember Tesco Law, but it was retail distrib. No, anyway, doesn't matter. That's
Oh, do you know, I can't think
I'll look
now.
it
I
up.
mean, it
Yeah,
was all
don't please don't
about
worry.
what we call unbundled services, wasn't it? But we're at that point again now with AI. I mean, that is exactly where we're at with AI at the
Interesting.
moment.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the next big challenge for legal services.
Yes.
You've got some people at one end of the scale who are saying, well, this is the end of the legal profession as we know it. I absolutely don't think it is.
Definitely
I
not.
just think it will drive change. And
Yeah,
you've got to keep
correct.
up and stay current, or, you suddenly find yourself with an unsustainable service and business model.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's true. It's true of just about every business. I would suggest I was speaking to an owner of an accountancy business, and I can't remember the quote exactly, but I've certainly subscribed to it. AI won't replace the profession, um, but it was something around it's the businesses and it's the practices that embrace it that will succeed because it is about not fearing it or resisting it. It's accepting it, embracing it, and becoming better because of it. But it's not to replace because
Yeah,
humans still want to deal with humans. There's no doubt about that.
that's right. Yeah,
That the
yeah,
human touch is still there. So yeah, I can imagine it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating for so many different businesses. But yeah, and it's been comfortable with that, with those changes happening. So I guess people are looking, well, I would imagine people in your organization are looking to you for, as you said, having all the answers, but we don't have to have all the answers. Just believe
no.
the answer exists.
Yeah, I know, and actually, what we're learning at the moment with AI is about testing and learning, isn't it?
Yes,
And lawyers are not traditionally very comfortable with that. If they're being asked to try something new, they don't cope very well if it doesn't work straight away.
yes,
But actually, the evolution of AI is that it is just evolving.
yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's a really hard thing for everybody to get their heads around.
Yeah, I can imagine because it's we're searching for stability and surety, and it
Yeah.
do-
No, it
it
doesn't
doesn't
give that.
exist. It's like it doesn't
No,
exist. There was we
no.
were talking about sort of learning, and it's similar to I remember the ex-Labour peer Tony Benn, Lord Benn, and when he retired from I think he retired from Parliament and then the House of Lords, that he used to speak in a lot of educational establishments, lots of universities and things, and they bring him in to speak and the first thing he started, apparently, this is, I was told, the first thing he says when he starts his speech is, "We all wake up in the morning knowing less than we did the day before." And apparently all the lecturers and stuff said you can't say that, we're in an education establishment. And what he meant was the amount of information is growing so
Yeah.
fast that our percentage of it is reducing, however hard we learn. So we
Yes.
have to be open. We have to accept things will change, and it isn't an easy thing. But it's part of certainly the modern world. I think it's probably part of the world in general. But I think the speed of change is certainly something we've never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right.
Emma, I'm keen. We've sort of touched on this a couple of times already, but in Action Coach, my organisation, we have a definition of a true business, which is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. Now I'm going to put can in there, but can work without its owners. And I'm keen to know your view of that because it feels like you're on that journey of, i.e., you don't have to do the work anymore, and you're sort of
Yeah.
on that mode. But how do you feel about that as a definition of a business?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do agree with that as a definite. It's really funny. The turning point actually for us was a few years in when we stopped being, in effect, in a situation where we could be held to ransom by individuals within the business.
Right.
Because if you're a small business with, you've got a smallish number of lawyers that, anybody goes or leaves or, something happens or changes or someone falls ill or,
Yep.
um,
Absolutely.
then the impact on the business is massive.
Yep.
And, a few years ago, we got to the point where the business is not dependent on any one person in the business,
Brilliant.
including me.
Yep.
And that was the point at which I felt like we'd achieved our objective of Ridley and Hall being a stable, sustainable business because of the legal aid and the way we're doing things with all of
Yes.
that. Not as profitable as it
Yep.
could be, but that's a conscious decision, so
Yep.
that's okay. But still absolutely sustainable. And yeah, that's a big thing there because anything can happen and
Absolutely.
does happen.
Absolutely.
Life just happens, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I like about helping people create that is however much people love what they do right now, that doesn't mean they're going to love what they do in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, or even
Yeah,
can do it. As you rightly say, sometimes
yeah,
external circumstances
that's
get in the
right.
way, and not and getting to a point where you have to do what you do, and now not enjoying it is not a great place to be, I think. So it's
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
also, as you rightly say, exactly right. For me, it creates stability, and therefore,
Mm.
you say we want a level of stability. If any organisation or team is dependent on any individual, we have a point of weakness. We have a point of a choke point
Yeah,
in
you
any
do.
business.
Yeah, you
Um,
do. If something happened that I couldn't come into work for a few months, or God forbid, I'm going to touch wood now, touching wood now that that's not going to happen. But if it did, all right, they'd be slightly frustrated by the state of my inbox, but they'd be fine. They'd all be fine.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah,
Sorry, I'm laughing.
because
The same would be said of me.
yeah,
I was literally talking about inboxes earlier because I had a Zoom call with somebody else and they went, "You've got a lot of tabs open." And I'm saying, "Well, that's probably a bit of state of my mind." Um, but the point being is you, you to lead the business in the way you do and to be comfortable with change, there comes with the flip side of that is not necessarily having the most organized inbox. So it's a good thing that you don't. Yeah,
yeah.
please pass that on to the people that would be frustrated because it's a good thing because you're doing all the other things that are so valuable that perhaps some of them can't. So wonderful. And
It's no different. I always think of it, it's the electronic version of the house, isn't it? We all, I like to keep a fairly clean, tidy house, but I've got the odd dodgy drawer where everything gets chucked in. And we all do, don't we? You
yeah,
know?
when I fill up all those drawers, I move house. It's the easiest thing to do. It's just like, "Oh, I'm going."
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've touched on this a little bit. So probably, but I'm keen to know what the future looks like um, for Ridley and Hall, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I mean, I'm really excited. I'm excited about our centenary. I think that's a great thing
Yes,
to,
wonderful.
to see a business through celebrating 100
Yes,
years. And then, what does the next 100 years look? I mean, it's a real great moment, actually, isn't it, to look forward, that
yes,
cusp of 100 years. And, what will it look like? And we have to continue on our growth trajectory.
yeah,
Um, it's really important because that gives us stability in the market. So that has to continue. Whether that will be opening in new geographical areas, whether that will be continuing to grow our existing geographical areas, whether that will be developing different legal services because we're not a full service law practice.
Right.
We've
Yep.
just now in launched our first new legal service, which is immigration, which is a really interesting legal sector at the moment with everything that's going on.
Yes.
Um, and supports a lot of the other work that we do really beautifully. Um, so it will probably be a bit of all of that.
Yep.
Um, and with the focus on being, how where our investment is going to start to continue to look very differently over the coming years. If you went back to if you look at your accounts 15 years ago and where you spent your money, it's a very different place to where you spend your money now.
Yes.
And I'm interested in that and what that's going to look like going forwards.
Yeah.
In professional services, historically, it was always people. Your
Yep.
payroll was your big
Yep.
expense.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's will always be the case, I'm sure. But
Yep.
it is changing,
Yes.
and your tech spend, you were spending on your people and your offices, and that's not it anymore. You've also got your tech spend, you've got your investment in your people
Yep.
spend that you didn't have 15 years ago. That's all going to be very different. So I'm excited about all of that, and that's where it's all going to change.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really fascinating. And I remember talking to quite a few, as I say, professional service professionals, because this going back, a very long time. This idea of a third, a third, a third being the model for, of revenue, a third to the lawyer, a third to cost, and a third to profit has just changed radically because I think the third to costs has just significantly increased, and that's got to therefore impinge on the other two in some way.
Yeah,
And in many cases, it was impinging significantly on profitability, which and so the change is going to happen. And I think the key thing, as you've highlighted already, absolutely rightly, is it's about what is the change? How do we lead the change and be part of the change rather than let change happen to us? Um, and the final
let's see.
question. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, just let's see.
Absolutely. Let's
Who knows?
absolutely.
You say, what are your plans? We do have plans. It's just, you've got to be flexible because 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we weren't using AI in our business.
I, absolutely. I always say that one of the things we do with I work with clients is long-term goals but short-term plans, because the goal
Yeah,
can remain the same potentially, but how we get there may need to change over, in a short term. We talked about COVID. Anyone that had a 12-month, 2-year plan in January of 2020 pretty much changed it pretty quickly when they got into February, March.
yeah,
It's a bit pointless
yeah,
going into too much detail. It's believing going back to what we said, it's believing the answer is there, even if I've got to change things as we go. But if I do believe strongly in having a North Star, a direction to head towards, so
yeah.
we
That's
know
right.
where we want to get to, and we know, and that's what leaders I think do really well is describe what that looks like, even if the steps aren't always totally clear. Um,
You mentioned COVID just there. Actually, one of the things that COVID taught me personally, what I've learned is to be more comfortable with the unknown.
mm,
It really did, actually.
it's
Because
I
I
think
remember when that first kicked off being absolutely terrified personally.
yes,
I mean, I wasn't walking around the business sharing that
no,
terror.
no,
But
not a good
we
idea.
were all going home, weren't we, and watching the
Yeah,
news and what's coming next? How is this going to work? And being terrified. And by the end of it, just realizing that we're a lot more resilient than we think we are. That our business actually, when it's well run, can be a lot more flexible than we think it can be.
yep,
Yeah, individual things are not going to bring us down. We just have to be creative and innovative and work around it.
absolutely.
And it gave us confidence to try new things. So it did teach me a lot, actually.
Yes. I don't. I think there was so many good things that came out of it. There's a lot of, but not so good things. I had
Yeah,
probably most people's mental health dropped a few notches,
yeah,
probably across the board. There, things that weren't good, and a lot of decent businesses didn't survive. Normally things like this
Yeah.
highlights unfortunately the weaker businesses anyway, in some ways. But yeah, it's what's the good side. The other thing that I think is really relevant, and it's true, we're seeing this now with changes that are happening, things like the war in the Middle East, and various things, and the wars we've had, the Ukrainian war, and COVID, etc. Is if it's industry wide, then the organizations within that industry that solve the problem first, the ones that are going to be very successful. So although it can feel like a challenge, and it probably is, it's an opportunity too, to solve. That's my belief. And the ones that do can actually surge in make a step change of success, while other people are, worrying about what might happen. It's not an easy thing to do. I think, well, it was JFK, wasn't it? There's nothing to fear but fear itself, I think was a great quote. Um, and it's fear is we're so good at awfulizing, unfortunately, as a human, as the human condition is great at awfulizing. And but as you say, I remember that too. When we first, we went home, and it's just what's going to happen. This could be it, couldn't it? I mean, it's just like everyone go home. Well, what does that mean? So no, so I'm looking on. So final question, or not final question. I have got a bonus final question, but final question is: what's the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that? That must be a desert island disc question. But
Yeah,
what
listen
would?
to Desert Island Discs. No, because I wished I'd had the confidence at that young age to get out and meet different people and talk to different people and find out what's out there. But it just wasn't what happened then. You
No,
know, you it just wasn't, you went through school and then you either went to do your A levels or technical college or you got a YTS as it was then. And then, you went to see your careers advisor and I mean, I was inspired by LA Law just because I thought the women on there were just amazing. But it could have been equally anything, couldn't it? It could have been anything.
yes,
And and but now, I see so many people doing so many interesting things, even like within the legal profession. I'm so lucky being involved with the Law Society. You get out and about and you meet so many different people. And I meet lawyers who have such interesting jobs that I wish I'd have known about that.
brilliant.
The lawyer who heads up, Channel 4 legal services or Uber or the forces or all these, and I
Interesting.
think, God, I wish I'd have known about all of that as
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
young person. So how do you broaden your horizons and as a young person? But if I could give myself any advice, I'd be like, get out there and get talking to people. Just because you just don't know what the art of the possible is, and knowing the art of the possible. You were talking before. I don't know how you phrased it about you only know, but you only know what you know, don't you?
100%.
Um, and so now, what I most enjoy about getting out and about and meeting all these different people is broadening your. I broaden my own horizons, and I broaden the horizons for Ridley and Hall. And if I could possibly advice back at 18, it'd be, get out there and find out what you could do.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, sound advice for anybody. And I mean, brings to mind. I've got two relatively grown-up daughters. One the eldest has gone through college, already got an amazing job with the civil service. You know, bought her own house at 23, so totally sorted with the partner, and we're looking forward to them get married next year. The other one, 19's gone traveling. It's the third time going traveling, and I love both
Great.
of them for doing what they're doing. But it is, I think,
Yeah.
traveling. I was lucky enough to do it in my sort of late 20s, but just that that definitely is broadening horizons, and learning a bit of self-reliance. I think when you're over somewhere, and so you don't know how to do things, um in different countries, different places, different languages. So
Right. And we're not
broadening
going to be
horizons.
retiring early, our age group, are we? We're not retiring early, our age group.
No.
Our parents were the ones who
Yes.
retired in their 50s. Not many of us are going to be retiring in our 50s. It's a long working life.
Yes.
Our kids, this next generation, have got a long working life.
Yes. Yeah, and it goes back to the whole idea. I think we said right at the start. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy it. How will we make that happen? And if we can do that through, fractional working, find stuff that we really love to do. I'm a massive believer in finding that real niche purpose that's right for us individually and maxing out on that.
Yeah,
You mentioned lawyers in different places and sectors, and just finding stuff that make makes us happy because
yeah,
that's what life's all about. That's what we
yeah.
do. What we do. So the final bonus question was when are you opening up the office in LA?
I would love to open an office in LA. Just I'd have to have the
Absolutely,
1980s blow dry, and
absolutely.
I'd have to,
The
I
big
would have to, and the earrings and the all of that. Although it might be a bit hot, I don't know if I'd manage with it. Wouldn't that be a great ambition? I'm not sure that that is on the roadmap for Ridley and Hall. I'll have to speak to my fellow shareholders. Um,
Yeah, oh, well, I
we
look
might be
forward.
sticking with Yorkshire, but you got to dream.
100%, 100%. Yeah. I've just realised Lancaster's got an LA postcode, but I won't mention that. So,
Oh, has it? Oh, yeah,
uh,
that's true.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting go Lancaster. It's got to be Los Angeles.
Well, will we move across the Pennines? It's, can you go from Yorkshire?
It's a
I'm
difficult.
sure you can.
It's a difficult gig that one, but
Yeah, it
I'm sure
is.
if anyone's going to manage it, you guys are. So, Emma, it's been really delightful talking to you and really insightful as well. In terms, a whole bunch of stuff we've talked about today, and it would be really great to swing by and catch up again in another 6, 12 months, especially the other side of the 100th celebration, which must be an amazing thing. But for now, thank you so much for your time today.
I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks ever so much.
Me
Take
too.
care.
Thank you.